Hello and welcome to Making Moves, a brand new podcast by Beatty Real Estate and your go-to source for all things real estate in Dubai. Today, I'm joined by our very first guest, our newly appointed Head of Commercial, Mr. Mark Payton. Welcome to the team, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Tarek.
So Mark, you've just moved from the UK about 2 years ago, where you've had an extensive background in real estate. I believe it was off-plan and secondary. You've now been in Dubai for the last 2 years, focusing on the commercial real estate sector. Tell me what's going on in commercial real estate in Dubai.
Yeah, so commercial, it's a very busy time. Even when I got here, since then, things have jumped up in regards to price, things like demand. There's obviously new companies that have been formed daily. So for us, we're getting lots of inquiries, from all ends of the scale, from office space to warehousing to plots of land. So there's a lot of activity going on at the moment.
So can you share some current statistics about real estate transactions in Dubai in the commercial sector?
Yeah, but if we look at the last 12 months as a whole, and we take the whole of Dubai, we're over 7,000 transactions in the commercial side. 7,000,
that must be quite a substantial number.
Yeah, well, we're 30% up from last year, and that equates to 68 billion dirhams, which is just under 47% of an increase.
Now, this is quite a broad thing to ask, but what would you say the average price per square foot in the commercial office space is?
Yeah, if we take it as an average, you're looking at 1,300 dirhams per square foot, which again is up 20%.
What areas are you seeing are of peak interest in terms of rental?
It's funny because if we take the last decade, Dira and Bur Dubai used to be the centre of the commercial side. Now, places like Business Bay, JLT are more of a focus. However, those locations are still doing the highest numbers. You're talking like 136,000 transactions in Dira alone.
Wow, in terms of rental.
In terms of rental.
So in terms of sales, which is the higher achieving areas?
Yeah, so Business Bay, if you look at that was over 1,400 transactions. GLT was under 1,000 transactions. And the funny one is the next one that you're going to have is Jebel Ali. Jebel Ali was the next place that's had the highest transactions.
Jebel Ali is quite an industrial area, so I'm assuming this is more so with warehouses, plots, that kind of thing?
Exactly right. So mostly warehouses and plots, but there's a big move of focus on that location because obviously it's the next expansion for Dubai.
I guess so. We're seeing a lot of projects and interest moving towards the west of Dubai. There's quite a bit of land left to fill out, so I'm assuming as Palm Jebel Ali and Sheikh Maktoum Airport are nearing completion, we're going to see a lot more projects moving this way. And I guess that opens up more room for commercial areas as well. So, Jebel Ali being an existing industrial area, it's definitely I can see it being a high interest area.
Yeah, and as long as developers are keeping an eye on this to, maybe look at growing the commercial side on that area, it's going to be good for everyone because, for every residential project, I think there's not much that's done for commercial. So I think it's like 2% compared to the residential side, which is a big difference.
Okay, so do you feel that there's been a shift in terms of demand since, we are well past COVID now, but how does that look?
Yeah, I mean, since COVID, obviously we were oversaturated with stock. Now it's the flip side. So when you take buildings, most buildings, you're 95% occupied, and there's a lack of kind of grade A options which are available for clients. So there's a lot of demand because new companies are setting up every day, and there's still a huge attraction for companies given the corporation tax benefits, the ease of setting up a company. So as long as the attraction's there needs to be a kind of new focus on projects for commercial on that side.
And in the 2 years that you've been here, how have you seen that the market has changed for both sales and rentals? Where has the prices gone? I understand that in commercial specifically, you work on a price per square foot. So what have you seen in the last 2 years?
Yeah, so Business Bay, if we take Business Bay for an example, you were looking around about the 900 to 1,300 dirhams per square foot. Now you could be anywhere from 1,300 dirhams to 2,000, 2,500 dirhams per square foot. So prices have definitely shot up there.
Okay. So what are the trends that are going on right now in the commercial real estate market?
So at the moment, the trends, I would say there's a lot of inquiries for business centres. This is something that's a big attraction for investors and entrepreneurs. They're obviously seeing that there's a demand for this, because when you think about a small startup company, they might not necessarily need 1,000 square foot office, or they maybe just need a location or address for their business. So business centres are accommodating with that, and there's been a big influx with business centres over the last couple of years.
I guess it's a lot more security for those smaller enterprises where they can just have a rolling contract. Obviously the rent isn't as high as taking an office in JLT, for example. And I see some of these business centres offering some great services that go with it: meeting rooms, free Wi-Fi, all those kinds of things. It's just easier that they've set it up so that it's one bill and one bill only.
Exactly, yeah, and that's a big attraction for these smaller companies, especially if they're looking to just have everything under one roof. So, the big thing as well is the location of these business centres. Usually, you'll find that they're close to the metro. They're also good connectivity to local amenities and things like that. So, it's definitely something that has been on the up since the last 2 years.
Okay, and shifting the focus over to the larger enterprises and international companies, what are you seeing is moving with that?
So the unique framework that DIFC has caters for these international companies and global organisations, because they are based on those principles of the common law. So if a company has a dispute or a court case, their company legal side are a lot more kind of comfortable to handle it with the laws that they're used to.
What kind of clientele do you see in DIFC?
So mostly international banks, insurance companies, companies that are kind of well known and well branded. And the big thing about this is, obviously with these kind of companies, you'll find that they're usually on higher salaries, the employees. So they want the best of the amenities. So you see higher end restaurants that go into the location, and that in turn brings in more companies that want to have that kind of high-end amenities on their doorstep. So it's a kind of full circle there. So the big thing is with the IFC, you're almost fully occupied. So it's not something that for companies there's a bit of a lack now. And a lot of companies actually, they don't always need the DIFC license. Maybe they're better with mainland, but it's because they want to be in that location. Sometimes it's purely for their clientele.
So as you've just mentioned about different licenses there, what are the sort of different licenses, and where does that determine that you can set up an office?
So you've got predominantly the mainland license, which is catered and mandated for if you're dealing with B2B companies in the mainland area. And then you've also got free zone licenses as well. And these can be anywhere from Javalali to JLT, which is DMCC. And if you're a company, say for example like a holding company, a free zone license is perfect for you, because you're registered as a business and you can still operate, but you don't need to really worry about the mainland issue, because you're not really dealing with B2B companies all the time.
It's a varied level of service that you guys offer in commercial, because you have to understand the whole processes of businesses, how they've been set up and where they would be able to operate, as opposed to just being your usual secondary market agent.
Yeah, there's a lot of qualification that goes into when you're dealing with your client. That client can be an entrepreneur, it could be a business owner, it could be an organisation, and they'll have a 5-year plan background where they're looking to maybe expand or etc. So you really need to kind of get to know those clients and ascertain what they're looking for in the sense of an office premises, what kind of location is convenient for them, and the room for growth if they're looking to expand their team. So really getting to the bottom of what they're looking for, finding out exactly what it is that we need to tailor for their requirements is essential to obviously form that relationship. If we were speaking about the business centres, there's a big demand for high-grade premium offices. Not every company will have a massive staff. They might have maybe 3 or 4 employees, but they're maybe like a hedge fund, or they want the kind of premium office and the luxury. So if you look at the kind of premium offices or buildings, if you look at the premium building towers, for example, if you were looking at Business Bay, you would say Opus, Vision Tower, Oberoi, places like that. but there's nothing really under 2,500 square foot. So if you're a company and you've got 4 staff, you'd be comfortable with a 1,000 square foot office. So there's a real lack of those premium grade A office spaces at the moment.
I understand. So delving further into grade A office spaces, you say that there's a lack of it. How have you seen that the demand for those grade offices has affected the price per square foot for both sale and rental?
Yeah, owners, sellers are aware that there's a shortage, and online now you can pretty much get most of the information that you need when you're buying. You can see the sales history, the prices that things have obviously went for, and they can see that if you've got a good fit out and you're in a good tower, there's a premium that's getting charged there. If we take Opus for example, the prices in 2019, for example, you could be buying an office at 1,000 dirhams per square foot. Now, if you take one of the highest prices that an office is sold for, you're close to 5,000. So it's jumped up considerably since then, and that's because these types of entrepreneurs, business owners, they want to be in that location, they want to be in that tower, and they're willing to pay the price for it. So this is why you're seeing such a huge rise in the prices.
And so far you're seeing no developers who are catching wind of this and announcing new projects for commercial buildings?
Well, there is projects, but very small amount. There's another project that's happening in Business Bay, which is going to be solely commercial, and that's by Omnia as well. I think they're going to try and go down the same road as the success they had with Opus. But again, we're talking maybe another 4 years away. So at the moment, there's a real lack of supply because, as we said, companies are starting up every day. These companies need a place and a base, and we're only reliant on the secondary market, which is almost fully occupied.
Mark, some very valuable insights there. Thank you very much for joining us on our very first podcast. It's an absolute pleasure having you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thanks very much for having me, Tarek.
And to our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. Please stay tuned for further updates and podcasts on the local trends, developments, and updates in the Dubai real estate market. Until next time, see you soon.